Welcome to Whisky.com, where fine spirits meet. My name is Lyning, Horst Lyning. This is my son Ben, and today we're a little late.
Yeah, it's St. Patrick's Day. I'm not sure. Is it still St. Patrick's Day all over the world, or is it already somewhere?
Australia? Probably not.
Are you? Question for the chat. Are you still at St. Patrick's Day? Is it still the 17th over at your place? Okay, Whiskey Jason is over here again.
Good beer.
Does he have an English channel as well? Good evening. Okay, yeah, I think the guys are just tuning in right now.
Yeah.
So, you want to start with a bit of a history?
I think we will have a little bit of chatting around.
Oh, he says it's the 18th in Australia.
So it's just...
yes, it's the 17th. But where are you from? Greetings from Spain. The next guy. Yeah, I find it always funny how they're from all over the world. I thought like when we're streaming here in Germany in the evening, then we only get Europeans. Maybe some Americans, which is afternoon, I think now.
Noon to afternoon.
But Australia, it must be like something like, I don't know, 5 a.m. in Australia.
Or even very, very
late. Yeah, here he says that Jason has English and German YouTube channels. Okay, he's one of the guys who also has two YouTube channels. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
Nice hat, yeah. I'm sweating below that. It's horrible.
Have you been to any parades up till now? Greetings from Dresden.
Lithuania.
Philadelphia, USA. Yeah, New Mexico, USA. Ah, nice hat. I don't like my hat. You got the cool hat.
Yeah.
You got the cool hat. That's
so you always find these funny things.
Yeah, like
I gave you some pet food.
Oh. I have something for the 1st of April now. I'm gonna torture you this time.
Me or
you?
Nah.
Hi everybody, happy St. Patrick's Day. Yeah, let me just start off with a bit of a background of St. Patrick's. St. Patrick's is the guy in Ireland, and he is like the patron of Ireland, and he actually lived in the 5th century after BC.
Mm-hmm.
No, AC.
After Christ.
After Christ, yeah. And he was a missionary, a Christian missionary, and he brought Christianity to Ireland. And actually, we really don't know if the 17th is the day he died, because it was just written down in the 1700. So this would be like we would write down right now when something 18...
Napoleon.
Yeah, when Napoleon was born, just out of what we hear from people, from talk, from chatter. And he has said that he actually freed Ireland from snakes, or saved Ireland from a plague of snakes. This is actually not that good for him, because biologists and archaeologists can dig around and they really can't find any skeletons of snakes. So he must have either obliterated them, or I don't know, evaporated them, annihilated them to find powder, or
it's an analogy.
There are no snakes.
It's a Christian analogy.
Yeah, maybe it is an analogy for the snake of sin or something like that.
Yeah.
What else did he bring to Ireland? And that was the symbol of the what's this called? Clover. And he actually used the 3-leaf clover. Usually you see a lot of the 4-leaf clover because of, good luck and that kind of stuff. Leprechauns. But he used the 3-leaf clover to have the Holy Trinity, to symbolize the Holy Trinity. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And the last thing about Ireland and St. Patrick's Day is the green. Why green? Because it's called the Green Island. Yeah, Ireland is very, very, very green. I've driven around there a couple of times, and they have really, really good green fields.
A lot of rain.
Yeah. A lot of rain, and it's pretty mild because of the what do you call it, Gulf Stream, right? Gulf Stream. Yeah. Let's now go back, go away from St. Patrick's Day. St. Patrick's Day is a good reason to, celebrate and drink. And we are going to the Teeling. The Teeling distillery was founded in 1782 and
in Dublin.
And it was founded by Walter Teeling. But let's focus a bit more, because I didn't find that much on them. But let's focus a bit more on the younger history, and let's talk about the Kool-Aid distillery.
Yeah, I visited the Kool-Aid distillery in 2010.
Yeah, I was there as well, but I was that was 9 years ago, so I wasn't in the whiskey business back then.
And this was an old pharmaceutical alcohol plant, and after that, I think it was a vodka plant from potatoes, and then it was bought by the Teeling family, and they converted it into a whiskey distillery. And the specialty of that whiskey distillery is they have pot stills as well as column stills in it, so that they are able to produce, the whole palette of whiskies available. And then they tried to sell the distillery after more than 20 years. And they first tried to make an IPO, initial public offering, but it was financial crisis 2008, 2009. They weren't able to bring it to the public. And after some time, then they sold it to Jim Beam. And it didn't take for long, and then Suntory took over Jim Beam.
The Japanese.
Snap.
There was always a bigger fish.
Yeah. And but I think not all of the stocks went through with Beam, but kept as well in the hands of the Teeling family. That's a small history of the old plant.
Yeah, so the younger generation, the current generation of the Teelings then thought, okay, we want to get on the whiskey business again. So they got themselves a distillery back in Dublin. So they decided to build the Teeling distillery at the Newmarket Square. And this here is the building. It's actually located directly in Dublin, next to the Newmarket Square. And the Newmarket Square was an old market for grain and malt. And that's why the Newmarket Square was also famous for the distilleries. A lot of distilleries located around the Newmarket Square, because they could just go down to the Newmarket and get their most needed resource, the grain and the malt. Nowadays, the the Newmarket Square is just big parking lots, so there are not many markets. I don't think there's any market there anymore, and so they have a huge space in front of them for visitors to park, and it's nice to reach. The old Teeling distillery used to be, I think, 2 corners away from where they're located right now. It was the Marrowbone Lane. I drove through there. You can't see anything. There is no old building. It's just I think it was just living space there. And they opened their distillery in 2015, and for 125 years, not a distillery hasn't been opened in Dublin since the Teeling distillery opened. And now in in October 2018, the first single pot still whiskey from the distillery here of Newmarket Square came out, but only 6,000 bottles, and therefore only exclusive in Ireland. Now they have 3 standard bottlings, and we're gonna try them today. Yeah.
There has been a question. Vous êtes de quel pays? Oui, nous sommes d'Allemagne.
What?
Amadou Nda.
Don't speak any French.
I had it in school.
Entrance looks like
years.
a hobbit hole. Any Winnipeggers here? Yeah. Winnipeg is Canada, isn't it?
Yes.
I've driven through. No, around Winnipeg. I drove from what's Quebec to Winnipeg, and then around Winnipeg up to what's the route up north to Gimli.
Merci, c'est cool. So the delay, I think, is now shorter than we had on the last
the
stream.
other one we streamed in 4K, and this one is just 1440p, so it's not quite 4K. Yeah, it's okay. So yeah, let's try the first one.
Yeah,
the first one is the what you call it, single grain.
The single grain.
Yeah, we're gonna go to the mash bill because they actually do have mash bills at the distillery, and this one is the 100% grain whiskey. But it's the bottling. We have the bottling of, I think, is it 2017?
Yes,
2017.
March.
So yeah, it's definitely from the old distillery.
Yes, and they say it's a single grain whiskey, and it's matured in wine barrels.
Matured in wine barrels. Okay, nice.
Oh, sorry. So there's a definite note of vanilla. I had that an hour ago, and it was then quite alcoholic, sharp. And this sharpness, well, vanished a little bit. The vanilla note is stronger now, but the alcohol is still there. It's 46% ABV. It's quite intense. It's unchill filtered. It's uncolored. So it's quite a natural whiskey, but it can't hide that it's a grain whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely. It's still, for me, it's still a little alcoholic. You have a 46% ABV non-chill filtered grain whiskey, but it's a little sweet and a little fresh. Yeah. It's missing a bit that maltiness. It's definitely a grain whiskey.
Yeah.
But I've written down in the notes here, it says Irish barley and corn from southern France. Seriously?
Barley is not malt. You can...
barley is not malt, definitely.
Barley is not malt. So this is not malted barley, but, heat-treated barley to cut it into sugar and pressure vessels, so that you can cut it, the starch, into sugars. Yeah.
Okay, we had two guys from, one from Africa, I think it was Kenya, and one from Tel Aviv. So it's really from people all over the world. Mm-hmm. So cheers.
Don't like the camera angle. Mm-mm. Well, which one? We have three here. So it's a big mouthful. It's in the start, it's quite oily, which is quite typical for grain whiskies. But then there's some intense chocolate note moving over a little bit to bitterness. And, well, the oak is there. And a little bit of this winey note shines through. Probably a little bit of grapes. Yeah. It's drier in the aftertaste.
Definitely drier in the aftertaste, and it's it's like it's not as malty and fluffy malty. It's more like a bread. It definitely has a bread flavor. Some sweet tones, a little bit banana in there. Yeah, something like banana bread, something like that. But it's in the end, it's becoming much more drier.
Yeah, and a little oakiness in the aftertaste. Right there, is there somewhere here from Ireland? I suppose not. They're all in the pubs and in the streets.
Okay, let's see what we have in the chat here. 88 watching. Green and a Danish, please. Perhaps. What's it? Danish is something to eat, right?
Is that more drinkable than Jim Beam? Definitely, yes. So this is priced at slightly above 30, and therefore you get a 46% single grain, unfiltered, uncolored, aged, I don't know, between 3 and 5, probably 7 years. There had been some single grain whiskies from Teeling out there on the market with 6 and 8 years. Yeah.
I like how they don't really get off the rails with the price with the Teeling whiskies. I'm not sure how much their new stuff is priced, but the old whiskey is fairly priced.
Sure.
Finland. Yeah. Lithuania, nice. Okay, so let's continue a bit with the story about Teeling, and we're digging into the production. This here is the Kool-Aid distillery. I don't remember that much from the trip, so why don't you talk about this a bit?
So those are the column stills, three of them. And we look on the opening side of one of those column stills. There are these oval-shaped locks, doors. Behind that you find a plate with holes in it and coverings made out of copper. And from there, from plate to plate, the vapors rise and the cooled liquid drops down, so the separation takes place, that the alcohol is on the top and the beer and the water is on the very end, in the end, down there. So there are 3 stills here, and typically 2 of them are producing all around the clock, and the third one is for backup purposes there. And they had some pieces of the column stills open there. I had a chance to look in that. The beer for that column still, or the wash, is produced in stainless steel fermenters, and from that fermenters, the whiskey or the liquid, the beer, is drawn into a beer well, and from that beer well, the column still is constantly fed, and they're producing that way that the level of the beer in the beer well goes down with the production, and then they empty a new fermenter into that beer well, and the level rises, and so the distillation is continuously, and the fermentation is batch-wise.
Yeah, but the new distillery does not have continuous distillation, but it's a normal pot still distillery. They get their water from the distillery, they get it from an underground river. Yeah, there are underground rivers below Dublin, and they drilled deep down there to get the fresh water for their distillation. And they actually use the distillation also in the malt mill. And here we see the malt mill. And the malt mill is a special malt mill from Switzerland, and that is actually milling the grain in a wet milling process. And that means you don't have any dust flying around, and there is no chance it can explode. Yeah. Back in the days when you had windmills, it was always very, very dangerous to do milling, because it was dangerous that any spark could ignite some of the flour dust, and then the whole windmill explodes and you get blades of windmills flying around. So this here is a wet mill, and therefore it's very, very safe. They do have a mash bill here at the plant, and they do use for the single grain, they have 100% grain. Then we have 50-50 for the small batch, which is 50-50 malt and grain. And then we have 100% malt for the malt mill. And the next step is the mash tun. And the mash tun is a stainless steel mash tun, where you use hot water to then dilute the grist, the coarse grist that you have from your milling, wash out all the sugars and the starches, and also you have enzymes breaking down the starch into sugar, and the sugar is very, very important for the next process, and that is the fermentation. The fermentation here at the Teeling distillery is done in wooden fermenters and in stainless steel fermenters. At the front you see the wooden ones, which have 15,000 liters capacity, and the ones behind that have 30,000 liters and made of stainless steel. The stainless steel and the wooden fermenters are different because you have more insulation with the wood, and therefore you have a higher temperature and a faster fermentation. That means you have a bit of more of a rough taste, whereas the stainless steel has more radiates off more heat, and therefore it's cooler. And then you have a slower fermentation, less alcohol, but also more mild taste in the whiskey. Also in the wood you have lactobacterial. They are also doing something during the fermentation, and that means you have more of a fruity flavor that's coming out there. Yeah, it's really a philosophy behind using wood or using stainless steel during the fermentation. In the end, you have 2 days of fermentation, and that leaves you with a beer of about 8%. And I will not go into the distillation right now, so let's continue with a few questions and the next whiskey. Do you read any questions or?
Yeah. Dan's is a sprightly Irish jig. No, all I can is put on my hat again. Yeah, this way.
Greetings from the cold north
it's
of
so
Sweden.
Shady.
Okay, so then let's try the small batch then.
Yeah.
Here you go. What I really love about the Teeling whiskey is their animal. They always have the.
It's a dragon.
No, it's a phoenix.
A phoenix.
They use the phoenix to symbolize their their rise from the ashes and their reawakening of the distillery. That's the phoenix for the Teeling distillery. You can see it everywhere at the distillery, I
didn't know what a phoenix is. When I saw Harry Potter, then I knew what a phoenix is. So.
I'm not sure where the legend of the
it's
phoenix.
Greek. It's Greek.
It's Greek.
Greek, yeah.
It's all Greek.
Mm-hmm, yeah, I think so.
Price of these bottles.
So this one was slightly above 30. Now we're sitting below 30, and this one is. A rum cask finish, 6 months of rum cask finishing, and it's from March 2018, so quite a new bottle, and it won't take for long until the first whiskey from the new stills from Teeling will be available on the market, and so we're looking forward for that. And so this is now a 50-50 grain and malt. And you can smell it.
Who owns Teeling?
The family of Teeling.
Jack Teeling, and I think his brother is also in the business. But Jack is always signing the bottle, has the signature on the bottles. He's not signing every bottle. But Jack, and what's his brother's name? Can't remember. So it's, the Teeling family.
Jack and John? John was the ancestor from the 18th
I think I had it written
century.
down here somewhere. Jack and Stephen.
Stephen.
I think I've met Jack, but not Stephen yet. Or was it Stephen?
Mm-hmm. So this malt, 50-50 malt grain whiskey is a lot more complex than the grain. This was quite straight. And this one shows as well the winey character of the grain, the single grain, as well as the first malty notes. And there's a rum note in it, and typically I do not like rum. So rum for me is something I avoid This one is interesting, a little sweet, a little luscious. Yeah, doesn't smell too bad for rum, and it's complex because both of them.
Yeah, it's a nice mixture. You do realize there's definitely grain and malt in there. It's strange, but it's strange in a familiar sense. It definitely smells a bit like a blend, where you do realize, okay, there's something grain and malty in there. There's a bit of a banana note in there, but also it's nicely with banana and a bit fresh. Sweetness from the rum as well, fresh from the rum as well.
And the taste, it's mouth-watering. There's the sweetness, and as soon as you swallow, there's some spiciness. It's becoming a little bit drier, but still sweet. And it's a rewarding whiskey, completely mouth-filling, lots of aromas, and the bitterness I had in the grain is not here, not really, a little bit. It's not there, but it's just very little bitterness of dark chocolate, probably. The oakiness is far behind. So this lives from the malt and the rum and has some, as all blends have, the grain in the back. But it's definitely more pleasing than the single grain, and it's cheaper than that.
I like it. It's a bit of a step up from the single grain, because you do have that maltiness, a bit of that roundness, but still, I do still get that flat bread note from the grain, and it's. I would have expected it much more harder, much more what do you call it, spicier from the wood, and much more oaky from the wood, because the first one was fresh and then oaky, and this one I thought also a little bit more spiciness in the smell, but now the oak doesn't come through that much.
There's the question, from born to play 4 strings, sweetness from the sugar cane from the rum. Typically not, because the sugar cane, or the sugar from the sugar cane, is 100% converted into alcohol during the fermentation for the rum, and the after distillation will keep every sugar behind. No, this is a remembrance of sweetness, which is probably activated by some accompanying aromas from the rum, where you think, oh, well, this is sweet. If you put a refractometer in it and look at the sugar content in this, it will be very, very low, if at all, something is in. Yeah.
I like it. I do like it. There's a bit of a discussion going on there about Cooley and Teeling family and Beam Suntory. Yeah. At the beginning, we had the Cooley distillery, which was owned by the Teeling family. Then they sold most of the things to Beam, which back in the day was just Beam, not Beam Suntory. And then they had tons of money left because they sold everything. And then they opened the new distillery in Dublin as a pot still distillery and not the industrial plant.
So Beam Suntory, so Whiskey Whistle, Beam Suntory bought Cooley, so Teeling family opened their own distillery. No, the other way around. Teeling family, I think, wanted to build their own distillery in Dublin because they knew there is where the business goes, where the history lies, where the tourists come in. So they tried to sell, but in the first they tried to bring it to the stock exchange to have their initial public offering, but then there was the financial crisis and nobody dared to buy it. So they didn't get the money there, it was just too cheap. But then after financial crisis, Beam rose up, they got independent from the Fortune brands, I think. So Beam was independent. And then they were able to buy. They bought it, and fortunately now they had the money to build their own distillery. So this is a really expensive thing to build their own distillery.
Okay, yeah, let's continue with the production. Yeah. Here we see the 3 stills at the Teeling distillery. The Teeling brothers really wanted to do a very, very traditional Irish whiskey. So what is a traditional Irish whiskey? First of all, a traditional Irish whiskey is pot still whiskey, definitely. And then we have triple distilled whiskey. So we have a wash still, intermediate still, and a spirit still. This goes from left to right. So on the very left, we have the wash still with 25% ABV coming off. And then we go to the intermediate, 55 is the product. And in the end, we have 70 to 80 is the final product. Back in the day when I visited them there, they didn't have like their cutoff points just at the right points because they just opened the distillery, and that means they were still trying to get the spirit so it was comparable to their old spirit, and also just matched what they wanted to have for their spirit. So they were just fiddling around with the equipment because it was just barely running for a few weeks. Irish whiskey still is different in the shape to a Scottish still. It is very wide and very fat. They actually call it fat. And they actually ordered it. They wanted to order it from Scotland because most of the stills are made in Scotland. And they didn't get them from Scotland because, there was too much going on and too many people ordering stills, so they didn't get it. And they traveled to Italy and found someone who wanted to make these stills exactly in their shape. And when I say fat, usually the old stills were very, very big. This here is in one of the whiskey museums and shows one of the very, very large old stills.
So they're not welded, they have bolts?
Yeah, they're bolts, yeah. They're riveted.
Riveted.
And back in the day, the Irish whiskey was already mass-produced good, and everybody liked it because Irish whiskey was so cheap. And their trick was to have really, really large stills, so you can put tons of stuff in and have it boiled, so you don't have to take out the fire and make new fire so often. And really, when you have one process that is big, then you have big batches, and that makes it cheap. But also it was very, very dangerous because you were firing them with actual fire, so coal fire below the still. So the process was not, the temperatures was not always the same temperature. So you could have that thing boiling over, clogging up, and then overpressuring and then exploding. Happened a couple of times. Also, when you then realize, okay, we're overpressuring, and you quickly put out the fire, then you suddenly go under pressure and then it implodes, which can also be very dangerous. Yeah, that is the old day of producing whiskey. After the distilling, you will go to the warehouse. And this is one of the pictures of the warehouses in Greenore. You mentioned we had warehouses at Cooley.
Yeah, there are some warehouses, not too many, at the Cooley distillery, but at the close by harbor, deep sea harbor of Greenore in the east of the distillery, just close to the border to Northern Ireland, there's this Greenore harbor, and there you visited that warehouse. Mm-hmm. I only heard about that warehouse that the city or the small village of Greenore gave name to the old single grain of Greenore, which was called, of Cooley, which was called Greenore, and was 6 and 8 years of age, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So here we can see, there. When you go into that small village, it's really just a small village, and there's a little industrial area, and you have a few warehouses there, and you don't think much of it. But when you enter the warehouse, you realize it's stacked up to the very top with whiskey. 6 stories tall, and they're all standing. Yeah, that's a bit of a thing for the Irish. They're now storing a lot standing, but it's also done in other countries, and it is pretty handy to have them on pallets, because you can just drive around with your forklift and reach everything pretty quickly.
Yeah, and then Tom Friedrichshain said, how is it possible to take samples from all casks in a palletized storage warehouse?
You can.
No, you can't.
You can't. You have to just rearrange everything.
Yeah, they won't do that because those casks all of them are very much the same. You typically pile up all the same on top of each other. So you know this one is that old, the casks come from that, the casks are that old, and so on. So everything is pretty much the same from there, and you mix it in bigger batches, and everything is has a medium in it, median in it. So,
but this is just the one hall in that warehouse. They have another warehouse, and usually when the whiskey, they know when the whiskey is going to be right for bottling, and they drive in and they get out the bottles that the casks that they know they are now at the beginning of being ripe, and they store it in the smaller warehouse, so they can see, okay, we now need a bit of that one and a bit of that one. So the ones that are ready for emptying, they are transferred to another warehouse. This is here just the huge stock, but it just looks very impressive, right?
There's Omar from Iraq. Hello.
We had him last time as well, right?
And Gökhan from Turkey. Hello.
Okay. Let's talk a bit about the maturation within the whiskey. When it comes off the still, it's transparent. You can see the little phoenix through the transparent new make spirit. And after about half a year, you have a little white wine going on there, and then we have that nice golden color that you see in the whiskey. Where does that come from? It comes from sugar. The sugar inside the wood is actually caramelized through toasting. So you heat up a cask, and then the sugar inside the wood caramelizes. And during the maturation, the alcohol dissolves the caramel inside the wood, takes on the flavors from the wood and the sweetness from the caramel and the sugar, and that gives you the color and the taste in the whiskey. That just gives you the taste of A, oak, and B, sweetness. A little bit of a vanilla also coming through, because there is a bit of vanillin happening there as well. But you would still have a very, sharp whiskey, a sharp spirit. So there's also going reductive maturation. The other one is additive maturation, where you take in flavors from the wood, and the reductive maturation is when you take out flavors. This is done by the oxygen, so the cask is filled to the very top, but then something goes into the wood, evaporates, so the level of spirit inside the cask is going down with the years. And so therefore you have oxygen in the cask, and the oxygen is actually oxidizing some of the unwanted flavors and turning them into something else. Also, you can burn out the casks from the inside, so you have a charcoal layer there of 1 or 2 millimeters, and that is actually going like a charcoal filter, from active charcoal. And that is actually filtering out some of the unwanted, very, very sharp flavors. And that means you have a rounder flavor and a more mature flavor. That's where the maturity within the whiskey comes from. Yeah. So this is a brief overview of how whiskey is matured in casks.
There are a few questions. So does the whiskey have sugar in it? No. The sugar, a little bit comes from the wood. There's no sugar added.
No added sugar.
And the sugars are converted into alcohol at fermentation. Well, that's the main thing. And minor quantities come from the oak cask. That's right. The fermentation was for wine. Well, fermentation is also for beer. And beer is from barley, and barley converted into malt sugar, and malt sugar fermented into alcohol. That's beer. And then you distill it, and then you have whiskey.
It's not allowed to add sugar and call it whiskey.
No, then it's a whiskey liqueur.
It's a whiskey liqueur, but in some countries you are allowed to do that.
What? Which one?
Canada.
Up to very little, yeah.
2 or 3%.
Yeah.
But yeah, in some countries they're allowed to call it, I think you call it spiced whiskey or something like that. Then I think it's America, you can call it spiced whiskey or something when you put in stuff.
But not straight.
So yeah, usually go for the a little bit more premium brands, and also go for the whiskeys that have something before the whiskey, like Irish whiskey or Scotch whiskey or bourbon whiskey. Then you do have the quality.
Yeah. So quality. Next one.
Yo.
This is a single malt whiskey, and this is a single pot still whiskey as well. Single malt, they write on that. So they do not stay with the definition other whiskey makers in Ireland have, where they say single pot still. So this is pure. It's just pot still single malt whiskey. And the whiskey is malt whiskey, and it converts into single malt whiskey if it's bottled neat. Not neat, not blended with other whiskies from other distilleries. Then it's called single malt.
So would not raise one's blood sugar levels. I've heard that some say yes, some say no. So like for what diabetic people?
Yeah. So I don't try to lean myself out of the window here.
The thing is with blood sugar levels, the blood sugar levels are not just affected by sugar, aren't they? So I would say it's not affected by the sugar inside the whiskey. I'm not quite sure how the alcohol affects the blood sugar level. So you have to ask that to your doctor. I've never
Typically,
thought about that.
alcohol is digested first. So the body says, well, this is poison. I take it out first. And after that, they take out the sugars. And after that, they take out the fat. That's not 100%. It's going over. But in the beginning, most is taken out of alcohol. Then most of it is carbohydrates. And the last is then fat taken out of the blood.
The corks, I don't like for some reason. Okay.
So this one is much more intense. This is really a malt. I like malt. Malts are superior for me in contrast to grain. So this is a really wonderful single malt whiskey. And this one is matured as well in sherry casks, port wine casks. What do they have? Chardonnay casks. And a lot of other ones, Sauvignon, Cabernet Sauvignon, White Burgundy. So there is a lot of influence from the cask.
Yeah, it's a malt whiskey. You definitely realize it's a malt whiskey. It's much rounder than the other ones. Not quite sure if it's maybe a bit older as well. And it's nicely balanced between a little bit of spiciness and sweetness. Very nice sweetness.
So this is bottled in November 2017.
So it's definitely from the old distillery.
Definitely from the old distillery. Yeah. So have a
Cheers.
try. So there's power in it, 46% ABV, unchill filtered, uncolored, and the figs, caramel, little citrus note, probably from the pot stills, and dried fruits, yeah. And there's a light spiciness in the back. So we had to, in front of this, probably the spiciness is, if you would have it first, would be more intense than it is now.
I think on the first sip it was fruitier. Now that I swallow, In the mouth, it was somehow a bit more oaky. Now that I swallow, you get a bit of the tropical fruits, a little bit of mango, a little bit of banana, and oh yeah, it has grapes and that wine flavor, but it's not the typical white wine or red wine. It's something more in between, like a rosé. You know, that pink wine. Is that black bottle or just dark green? Did you just look?
Yeah, so it's a brownish green. So it's not definitely no Irish green, but there's a little brown in it. So it looks quite black. I think this is what they that they intended to, that it looks black, but it's not really black.
Nice. I think in the German take we skip the what do you call it, the measurement between how good we think the whiskey is, but I think now we do have the time. Okay.
Yeah, so there was a thing about the get rid of this.
So if you have any questions, we're done with the whole presentation and whiskey and distillery thingy.
Yeah.
And
oh yeah.
I think I bought it one number too small. I'm not sure if there were more numbers, but in the German we also sold a
Teeling.
One of these Irish caps with the whiskies.
Yeah, there's a Teeling logo.
No,
on
this
it.
is the one without the logo. We do have the one with logo on our.
Okay.
The one with the logo is over there.
So somebody said the cork is quite cheap. Well, the corks are short, and the corks have a plastic stopper on top of that, and this is a little small. So yes, I would say a little longer cork would be better, and a more massive stopper on top.
I do like the stopper, the phoenix on the stopper, but the rest of the cork, looks a bit small, and it has a small hole. It's not one of these big whiskey bowls with big holes in them.
The label said to be brown. Well, it's sort of brownish and has some blue reddish undertones, so it's not really brown. Yeah.
Ben with the flat cap looks great. Yeah, but I can't really wear it, otherwise I look so much like what's his name, Ralphie.
There's a video where you mimic Ralphie.
There's one like a William video where I mimic him. Are you guys coming to Ireland? I really thought about that one, and I'm planning my next tours, with the distillery videos. And no, I'm not coming to Ireland this year. I thought about it, and hopefully I will do it next year.
So how often do you do live streams? Well, one every 2 months.
Something like that. But there is a live stream coming up on the 12th of April European time, and it will be at 2000 probably. This time we did it a bit too short in between, and so you wanted to stretch it out a bit more, and then wasn't it at 8? And then we were a bit late. Sorry. Yeah, but we're looking at live streams. Live streams a bit more. What do you call it? To invest a bit more time into it. I always have to a bit dig up the old information that I took from the distilleries. In the German, we also have to sell all the whiskey, which is good.
Horse don't like them, right? Well, that depends. There's still the comparison missing.
No, I mean the live streams, I think he means.
No, I don't like them. So I'm an offliner.
Why do you not like them? Because of you can't arrange the time for yourself? Or? So
I have been in the mountains today. It was wonderful weather. I had to come back.
Really? Nearly forgot.
Really forgot it. So I'm a quite present person, so you normally don't get me wrong. So I'm able to do those live streams, yes. but it's not my.
Yeah, the thing is, you have to be on spot, and if you totally mess up, it's out there. I've never messed up a video, so I would say, yeah, I would not be comfortable uploading it, but still, you could totally mess up the video, and it's out there. And someone definitely pressed the record button on that one.
Say Dublin, Ireland, in November, they have a great whiskey event called Whiskies Live.
Yeah, I've had a look at this one, and I've thought about going there, but maybe we send some of them purchasing over. Because I think the Irish whiskey market is pretty interesting, because they now opened a lot of distilleries.
Like Teeling did the first. They were the first of the new ones.
Yeah, one of the first. I think 2008 they had 4 distilleries, and now they have something like 20.
2000, yeah.
23, 24, something like that. I mentioned it in the last Whisky.com news, and it's amazing how many distilleries opened up there. So I do definitely know. Happy St. Patrick's Day from the US. Yeah, happy St. Patrick's Day. Has anybody of you been to the parade? I have one favorite. It's a run-up for the second place. For me, the favorite is definitely single malt.
So definitely the single malt is best, and I say there is a rise from the single grain to the small batch, which is the blend, and the single malt.
Yeah, same for me. It's just
this is out 5 stars, 3, 4, 5.
Okay, yeah. It's definitely a rise to the single malt, definitely, because it's just malt is just, I don't know, I just like it better.
Yeah. And
it's much more round and
so this is below 30, this is a little bit above 30, this is mid 30s, so they are really well priced. Yeah.
How was whiskey when you're like 20? Was it better or the same or maybe worse?
I remember a bottle I had heavy contact with, but I was 16 then. And then I didn't have whiskey until I was 22. No, until I was 20. So, and then somebody I said, well, that awful whiskey. And I said, no, that's a single malt, that's better. And they tried, and well, it was better. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. Most of the people who had contact with whiskey had contact with bad whiskey and lot whiskey when they had contact first, and that's a bit of a problem to introduce these people to the other side of whiskey. On the one side, you do have the people who are just sitting on their porch and just downing a bottle, and plus the guys who do it with Coke and that kind of stuff, or just get drunk with whiskey. On the other side, you have people who really enjoy whiskey, and you see the small quantities and the flavors and the quality, and it's really hard to get beginners from the people who experience that first side to get them on the other side. So it's really up to you guys out there, because usually they have a mindset, and you have to give them something quality and say, hey, let's just not get drunk and just, yeah, green again.
So last 5 minutes. So we were late starts. We had a late start.
What is the drinking age over where you live, Horst and Ben?
So
USA is 2. 2. That's a bit young. 21, huh?
Where you were raised, there the quantity or the age for getting beer was 14. 14.
14.
Bavaria.
Seriously, I thought that was just an urban legend.
No.
I went into a supermarket and
no, 14 only in with your parents in the beer garden.
Yeah, we actually convinced the supermarket lady to give us beer when we were 14, because we said, if it's in Bavaria, it's basic nutrition. You can't deny us.
And after that, it was raised. I think in the moment beer is raised in the public for younger,
Supermarket is still 16. 16, yeah.
And spirits is 18.
Everything distilled is 18, and everything non-distilled is 16.
So
but the cool thing was, I was getting beer when I was 16, 18 was spirits, but I was not that into spirits back then. Mm-hmm. But when I was 20, I was flying to the States, visiting my sister, and then we went to a bar, and they were like, "Yeah, can I see your ID?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, I have my passport here." And it's like, "Yeah, but you're only 20." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm 20." And she was like, "Yeah, you can't get any alcohol." I was like, "Why?" Because it's 21. I was like, "No." Seriously, I was going to a bar when I was 20 and was not getting it.
You fly on your own to the US?
I was not getting a beer. I was like, "Dude, are you serious?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure."
You're allowed to vote, everything.
I'd like to die for your country. Now, seriously, 21 is just a bit too old, seriously.
Yeah, I think so.
Nobody in Miami is actually sticking to 21. If you look at spring break.
So, how did Ben and Horst prepare of this live event? Well, we had these 3 bottles. Did we get it from the distributor?
Not quite sure.
Not quite sure. Probably we got it from the distributor. So, I think if they were really from the distributor, I would have rated that better. So I don't know. And then we have these tasting notes for that. I think, did we had single videos of those, of the predecessors of those we had? Yes. And then we took that PDF presentation together with the pictures from our whiskey database. And then we kind of used to giving this presentation now.
Yeah, sure.
And it's easy.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. I thought Horst was Ben's dad. Yeah, he is my dad. Did I say anything else?
I'm looking younger than you.
Is it the other way around? Okay.
Yeah. So,
do you guys watch the Whiskey World? No, sorry, I don't watch that many other whiskey videos.
Yeah.
Okay. So.
Yeah. So
you want to wrap it up? So, put it in your calendar, or just keep being subscribed to this channel. 12th of April at 8 o'clock Central European time, whenever that is in your time. Yeah. I think YouTube will convert it to use, and you see it in your live stream. You can click on
and
the
please don't forget
to thumbs up the video
for this video. Yeah,
yeah, that would be nice.
Then we have a good start for the ones which will look up this video later. Yeah.
Okay. So thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.